Good evening, everybody. I'm Allison Stewart. Keith Olbermann has the night off. The writer's strike isn't affecting the White House, but you might not know it to look at the fight going on behind the scenes over Iran's nuclear program, because the Bush administration seems to be running repeats. Our fifth story in the countdown, new charges that the administration is picking, choosing, and redacting intelligence now, the same way as thought to have done so in the run-up to the war with Iraq. Now, down in Crawford, Texas, President Bush is rolling out the welcome mat tonight for German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Their talks are likely to center on Iran's nuclear ambitions, not back rubs. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the president hosted French President Nicolas Sarkozy in Washington. 1 week, 2 European allies with seats on the UN Security Council. Coinky-dink. Meanwhile, the Interpress Service reports that for a year, Vice President Dick Cheney has held up publication of the National Intelligence Estimate on Iran, pressuring intelligence officials to rewrite the document. Apparently unhappy, there were dissenting views expressed about the threat posed by Iran's nuclear ambitions. Cheney's unhappiness, apparently a major factor in the replacement of John Negroponte as Director of National Intelligence earlier this year. Ambassador Negroponte told the press in April of 2006 that the intelligence community believed it would still be, quote, a number of years off before Iran would be likely to make a nuclear weapon, quote, perhaps into the next decade. As for Negroponte's replacement, who was approached for the job by Cheney, just last week, Admiral Mike McConnell announced that the NIE on Iran would finally be released, but its key findings would not be made public. Let's bring in our own Dana Milbank, national political reporter for The Washington Post. Good to see you, Dana.
Hi, Allison.
It's been common practice for the Bush administration to release the key judgments of the NIE about Iraq, even when the information hasn't been very favorable for the White House. Then last week, we learned the administration will not be releasing certain info from the NIE about Iran. Has the White House provided any explanation as to why?
Well, Allison, there's an excellent explanation, and it's very convincing, but I'm afraid it's classified. So I won't be able to tell you about it just this evening. But what I can tell you is Mike McConnell, the new Director of National Intelligence, made the argument that this would compromise the CIA analyst's unvarnished opinions. It could embarrass allies. All of this is plausible, but the inescapable conclusion a lot of people will draw is that this 4-year practice of releasing the key findings has stopped because the key findings are not supporting where the administration is on Iran.
All right, though, if somebody wrote down the information about Iran's nuclear program, it exists out there, and someone somewhere has it. Any thoughts on possible leakage? Might we still learn what's in the NIE one way or another?
Oh, you can be sure. It's already sort of seeping through the ceiling. You can see the drips beginning to form there. Presumably it'll come out to some extent, but to a large extent, this isn't a surprise. It already has. 2 years ago, we had an NIE on Iran that said we're a decade away from nuclear weapons. They weren't even sure that Iran was trying to make nuclear weapons. We also will have the UN's IAEA coming out with a report on Iran and its nuclear ambitions this week, and if Iraq is any guide, the IAEA has been somewhat more accurate than the NIE anyway.
More than one writer, blogger, even editorial page has noted that there seems to be a deja vu feel to all of this. The Dallas Morning News writing about a recent speech by Vice President Dick Cheney. He characterized diplomatic efforts to head off the 2003 invasion of Iraq as sincere and exhaustive, though ultimately a failure. Now, that was the description of the diplomacy leading up to Iraq. Is the White House reusing its Iraq playbook in escalating a potential conflict with Iran?
Well, it may be, and certainly Cheney was the leading figure at this early stage before the Iraq War. But what you have to remember is the rest of the country has already seen this playbook, so its effect is somewhat limited. The Democrats are going to put up far more resistance this time. The public is less likely to accept these lines, and to say nothing of the of European and other allies. So the same process may be taken, but the result may be entirely different.
Why not follow the model of diplomacy on North Korea? Dial back on the fighting words, abandon preconditions, but maintain a strong stance.
Well, North Korea already has the nukes, so we have to be a bit nicer to them. But as a matter of sort of logic, it is correct that we're taking a more aggressive stance against the lesser threat.
We're less than 2 months away from the start of the 2008 primary season. Will the campaign help the administration build its case against Iran? Could the nation be distracted by the selection of the next president?
I don't think the nation will be distracted. I think there's, if anything, there's a possibility the campaign could become more about Iran, the way in 2002 it was about Congress authorizing force in Iraq, the way the Homeland Security bill was so prominent in 2002, then in 2004. You could see this becoming something of a referendum on Iran if that's a gamble that the administration and the Republicans choose to take.
Dana Milbank of MSNBC and The Washington Post. Always great to see you, Dana.
Thanks, Allison.
There's a new